Thank you, thank you. Happy to be here. Thank you. No, I love America's. What a nice little town. Where would I say? The Best Western? Nice little hotel, man. I felt like I was in New Orleans, and it was nice. So nice little relaxing. I'm a driver, get some windshield time, and hopefully share some wisdom and knowledge to help you in your lives as well too. So.
Did you see any ghosts over there? Because there's like ghost stories associated with the hotel.
It's weird. Last night I was kind of thinking that on my own, because it is, it's old, man, and it was nostalgic. I was kind of thinking that myself, so didn't hear any weird stuff, but thank goodness. But I'd love to come back to that. But no, I'm happy to be here. As I said, Jim, we connected recently because of the book and whatnot. We're connected on LinkedIn, and he knows I've given talks to college before. I went to a small liberal arts school, not unlike this school, actually a little bit smaller, called Allegheny College in Meadville, Pennsylvania. Are you considered liberal arts here?
We're considered liberal arts.
Okay, I thought, yeah, but it's the smaller dynamic. We had probably 2,000, 1,800 students and whatnot as well too.
Programs, the human resources program.
Okay, yeah, obviously. Well, yeah, liberal arts typically you don't get those focused, although they are building a little bit more of a marketing business curriculum, which they never had. But I was an economics major and played D3 football as well too. So many years ago, I'm an old guy, but happy to be here. Earlier today, I spoke to a class about my book, In Defense of Adversity. We're going to change topics more relevant to this audience. I guess we're all seniors. So we're going to change the topic more about what I call the secrets of high impact interviewing, how to ace your next interview and reach your career goals. And I'm going to take a little different route at this, because you have, what's the department called where they can prepare people for the resume and interviews?
Services?
Is that what it is, career services? So you have career services here to help you with that part. What I want to do is give you a perspective on how companies interview, what they're looking for, because one of the things I do with my clients is teach them how to properly interview people like you. So they're bringing the best in, they're not having mishires and things of that nature. So what I want to do is turn the tables for you to get a gauge on things I teach companies, so to enable to help prepare you, think in their shoes, so to speak. Does that make sense? So think about in their shoes what they look at in hiring you, so you can step back and say, here's what I might need to do with my resume, or here's how I might need to answer questions a little bit better. And like I said, what I'm teaching you now, I teach companies how to do. I also volunteer for some companies or from organizations where people are out of work and they're looking for work. I do the similar turn the tables dynamic for them. And I did this most recently at my alma mater, Allegheny College. So, excuse me. Once again, give you the dynamic of where, excuse me, where my clients are coming from. Tickle my throat. So I'm not a lecturer, I'm a facilitator. So please feel free to ask questions at any time. So there's really 4 overarching goals today, is to think from the employer's vantage point. You already have it taken care of here, what you need to do for the resume, mock interviews and all that good stuff. I want you to consider what I teach companies, so you can better prepare for yourself. So 4 things I want to cover today is, first of all, talk about the importance of hiring and retaining a high impact team, understanding the dollars and cents of a good hire. Do you think the hiring process is costly to a company? How many say yes? Yeah, it is an investment for the company. How many think there is a cost associated with hiring the wrong people, a mishire, or losing a good employee? How many do you think the cost is heavy there? Absolutely. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. The importance of companies to really step back and hire the right bodies, hire the right people. Second piece is interview you to a strategy that I do called behavioral-based or competency-based interviewing. And by the way, I see people taking notes. You could keep taking notes, but we'll get you the deck as well too. But yeah, you could keep taking notes. As the behavioral or competency-based interview, I'm going to walk you through that. This is what I teach my customers on what to look for. And then help you prepare so you're more marketable. How, based on that knowledge, can I be better by aligning my skills, my background, my histories with those behavioral competencies relevant to the job you're interviewing for? So if they're looking for leadership skills or communication skills, what in my resume and my actual experiences do I have that I can connect the dots that I do indeed have these skills you're looking for? So I'll talk about that and by providing facts and proof. And the last piece is, most importantly for you, is this the right match for me? Don't feel desperate. I always say, and I tell people, I don't work anymore. I don't mean that literally. I love what I do. So I don't feel like I work. If you find a job you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Does that make sense to everybody? So that's important too. Now, I'm not saying you don't have to make certain sacrifices and things of that through your career. Maybe some jobs that aren't as fun or as glamorous or whatnot. That's part of the developmental process. However, still, you want to find, is this company a good fit? Will they invest in me? Will they train me? Does it make sense for me to take this job as well too? So that'll be the final piece as well. So as I said, at any time, please feel free to ask any questions. So start off with a quote by Peter Drucker. He's a management consultant, very successful. He said, the ability to make good decisions regarding people represents one of the last reliable sources of competitive advantage since so few companies are good at it. So that's what I try to tell the company as I work with. Your hiring process, you're bringing the right people into this organization can be a point of differentiation for you. Unfortunately, most companies do not spend a lot of time training their people on how to interview. And if they do, it's not necessarily the right process or a successful process. So those companies that can do that will hire the best of the best, and they will keep them loyal to their organization. And that is both a cost benefit, but also a benefit for morale and the entire organization. Once again, a competitive advantage. The dollar's a sense of hiring top performers. There's a great book out now. Y'all are HR majors, right? Feel free to get this book. It's called Top Grading. It's by a guy named Bradford Smart. I follow his philosophy very much, and he talks about what he calls hiring top performers. Fill every position in your organization with an A player. Unfortunately, what happens, most often what happens, no standards, guidelines are determined, so talent is mismatched or weak. So the company doesn't have standards of what they're looking for. They're looking for a body, unfortunately. They don't have the set standards or as in-depth of standards as they may need. Personnel unfamiliar with the jobs are making the decisions instead of those, in that role or in that position who know what skills and whatnot are needed, and the decision making is rushed. We have a hole, we need to fill that hole quick, bang, let's do it. It sounds silly, but it is. I don't know if it's the majority, but it's a lot. It's out there a lot. I don't know, Jim, if you want to expand on that, or because you've been with some good companies too. So, yeah. And assessments are good. I recommend using them. As Professor said, I'm certified in DISC, Myers-Briggs, bar on EQ, but that's not the sole thing. That's a final determinant. If you want to really connect dots, if you're at a tough crossroads with regard to final candidates, assessments can help validate, am I on the right pattern, but it shouldn't be the only necessitating thing. And then, so because these things don't happen, there are typically two outcomes. First, disappointing results. Only 21% of 200 presidents and CEOs are satisfied with external hires. 25 global companies found 80% of their external hires were disappointment, and only 5% of 600 HR executives even measure the hiring success rate. So how do you know what a cost of a mishire is to the organization? Do you think it's big? Do you think it's a lot? We'll talk about that in a bit. That's the importance of measuring that ability, because it is a cost of the top line and bottom line. If you hire great performers that can be successful, that's excellent to your top line. If they don't pan out, or they leave, that is a cost to the bottom line that can be very harmful. I'm going to get in that a bit. It's going to surprise you. So the second piece of people not using the right process is staggering costs. The cost of a mishire alone, this is based off that book Top Grading by Bradford Smart, can be up to 15 times base salary. You think that's a lot? It's huge. Now, 15 times is the high point. He's basically taken encompassing everything, like the time spent interviewing, the paying people to screen, getting people trained in their job, and then maybe damage to a client or damage to morale. That's the high side. But you still divide that by 2, 7.5%, that's a lot, right? A third, 3 to 4% a base salary on a mishire. That's a lot to the bottom line, especially if you multiply that out 10 times 10 people. It's huge. Let's look at how those numbers might translate. Let's say someone has a base salary of $50K. If you lose that person, let's say that 15 times base salary, it could be $750,000 to the bottom line. Multiply that times 3 people you turned, 5 people you turned, 7 people you turned, 10 people you turned. Is that hurtful to the bottom line? Huge. Now, once again, he's saying that's the aggressive side, 15 times base salary. Still, divide that in half. Divide that in a third. It's still a huge number. Does that make sense to everybody? So, your role when you go into those corporate jobs, in your role, make sure you have a good process in place. Make sure you have a measurement process in place, because the success or failure of those people you're bringing on board is going to be very influential or detrimental to the organization as well, too. So there's huge cost associated with not having a solid process, not having a good measuring tool as well, too. So consider the flip side of that. This is the cost of a mishire. Consider the cost of a bad promotion, an unhappy employee, or a loss of a good one. Throw similar type dynamics in that. If you're not taking care of your people, if you're not developing your people, they may get bored, they may leave. That's a cost associated there too. So the human resource is a vital position in the organization. It's directly associated with the top line and bottom line of an organization. It's a major cog in the wheel. That's why your jobs are so important. The annual cost of employee turnover in the U.S. tops $15 trillion. Turnover, huge. So on the flip side, what's the upside of a happy, high-performing team? So, investing, look for companies, and when you're in that role, I'd recommend investing in training, but as you're interviewing for your potential employers too, are they investing in you? That may be that final answer. Is this a good match for me? If they're not investing in you, if they're not training you, you need to ask those questions. What's your investment in me as an employer? Are you going to throw me out to the wolves and make me struggle, or you have a process for onboarding me and helping me be more successful from the start? Is everyone understanding? These are very important questions you need to ask when you're interviewing as well too. So take this from the perspective of when you graduate and you're in those roles, but also what you need to do to get a job once you graduate. So happy employees or productive employees. There is a cost associated with unhappy employees. The loss of a good employee is even costlier. And take the time to develop. Good companies take the time to develop their employees. An article in Public Personnel Management revealed the following study. Training increases productivity by over 22%. Training plus coaching increases that productivity by 88%. So once again, when you go in those organizations, invest in a department that helps train and develop and get people up and running. And then secondarily, as you're interviewing, as you leave here, your senior year, do companies invest in you? Am I making sense? Because that's one reason there's a long story I'm not going to get into now, but I had a lot of job opportunities after my senior year in college. The main reason I took the job I did was because of the training and development that company offered. My first job out of college was a company called Beecham Products. They manufacture health and beauty aids, Aquafresh toothpaste, Halls cough drops, things you can buy in a grocery store. Their upper level management were all former Procter & Gamble employees. Does anybody know who Procter & Gamble is? One of the biggest, most successful consumer packaged goods companies out there. They were known, I don't know if it's still to this day, but in the day they were known for their training and development. And all my high-level managers were former P&G guys. So I have a P&G background. I had training, I had development. It built my career to where I'm successful now. Everything I'm doing now is based off of what I learned, oh my God, I'm afraid to say 30, how many years ago when I left that corporate job. They trained to develop people. I had a lot of job offers, and I took that job with Beecham. It wasn't a sexy job, schlepping toothpaste, but they gave the training, they gave the development, and the gentleman that hired me is still my mentor to this day. So taking that job because of the training and development fulfilled a lot more than just getting a job out of college. So they invest in their people, and it paid dividends for myself in my career. And then another one, a study in Manchester revealed the companies that invested in coaching received an ROI of more than 5 times. So once again, when you're in these roles, are you helping the company invest in their employees? And then secondarily, as you're interviewing for these jobs, are they going to invest in you? Does everyone follow? So that's a big piece. Because you don't want to be thrown to the wolves. I've been with companies. Does everyone know what I mean by thrown to the wolves? Throw you in a job, not train and develop, you sink or swim. A lot of companies do that, and that's why you have that turn. That's why you have unhappy employees. I'm not saying every company's perfect, but they should have some sort of onboarding for you and help get you up and running. That's an investment in your career, in your lives. Ask those questions when you're interviewing, okay? So that's the first part, the dollars and cents of hiring the right people. So not only when you're in those roles, pushing that philosophy, but as you're interviewing for those companies, proving that you are that good investment, that you are that person that's not going to turn quickly. You're going to be productive employee. Sell them on you are the right person, because there's a cost associated with that. So next I'm going to get in what I call the behavior or competency-based interview. Just to start off, a great quote I love by Abraham Lincoln. If I had 9 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 6 sharpening my axe. So from the interviewer perspective, why is that quote important? Why am I stating that? From the interviewer, the company's perspective, why is that quote pertinent?
You have to be prepared when you go into the interviewing process.
Yeah, you're going to waste, you have to be prepared. You have to have a plan of action. You have to have competencies, the behaviors. You're looking for success in that job, and you need to have a process to go through this interview process to ensure that you are getting that A player. So being a good interviewer takes work. It takes planning. Should be more time preparing for that than the actual interview itself, because you have everything, all the ducks in the row you need. Now all I have to do is find the people to do it. Most companies don't do that. From the interviewee perspective, your shoes, why is that quote relevant? Why should you be doing your homework up front? Or do you just go and interview blind?
So you're more like marketable. Like, say if you prepare and the other person doesn't, you're more likely to get the job.
That's that point competitive advantage, right? Not only companies get that competitive advantage by having a process that can differentiate them, but you are, brands, consumer packaged goods brands, the brand managers in marketing, they do what they can to differentiate their product from the competition. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? They don't want to create a Me Too item. They want to create a niche that's different, a point of differentiation. Interviewing is a chance for you to create a point of differentiation for yourself. Very much what you were saying, perfect. How can I shine versus this person? Why are they going to remember me in the moment and when I leave versus this person? Because when you leave, what's happening next? Someone else is coming in. Why are they going to remember you? How are you going to make an impact in the moment? How are they going to remember you afterwards? And that's going to tie to your preparation you did prior. This person buttoned up, he or she meets the criteria we're looking for this job. They did their homework. I'm highly impressed with this person. You made an impression in a moment, they're going to remember you afterwards too, so perfect. So basically, if he or she is a good interviewer, they should be preparing for you. And if you're a good interviewee, you should be preparing for that company as well too. So do your homework. A lot more stuff out there to understand your companies than when I was in college. You have Google, you have many, LinkedIn, social media, many ways to find out about your customers and see if you have what it takes to be a good fit for them, and learn and educate yourself about that client as much as possible. That will be a point of differentiation, I promise you. When you can start talking intelligently about their business and what the job entails, that's going to make you jump versus other people. So, any questions so far? Okay. So let's get into the behavioral-based interview. A behavioral-based interview is a conversation with a purpose. When that interview, it should be for a purpose. A lot of companies, they have these generic questions out. They just ask these, what's your strengths, weaknesses, closed-ended questions, and it's mundane. A good interviewer the sole goal is to get you talking. I talk about the 80-20% communication. Who's talking 80, who's talking 20? The interviewer should be looking to only talk 20. He or she wants you to talk. The more you talk, the more you can connect the dots for that interviewer. Why do you exhibit the behaviors or competencies relevant to success in the job? Is everyone I'm saying? It's your opportunity to connect the dots between what you have in your skills, experiences, and what this job entails, and why you're the right fit. So on the interviewer side, it should be a conversation with a purpose. It's set up to validate, do the job behaviors in you match with what the requirements are for the job, and to look for common thread validation, meaning you can say you're a leader, but what examples can you provide me you're a leader? Or are you just saying you're a leader? And I want to see common thread examples that you've given me this information. So look for those holes or those common threads. So I talk about 4 steps: discover, mind, probe, and align. That's what I teach companies on what to do. The first is the define phase. This is pre-interview. That's defining behaviors relevant to success in a given job. So behaviors relevant for a salesperson or account manager could be very different than an IT person. Does everyone understand? Different dynamics, different behaviors, different competencies needed. Some may overlap, but by and large there's some differences there. We need to define what it means to be a good salesperson, what behaviors or competencies are needed, and or what behaviors or competencies are needed for a good IT person or an HR person. That needs to be done up front. That's part of the defining phase. Mining is preparing questions that mine information to define what required behaviors need to be and how do we access those, how do we draw those out when we're talking to a person. Probe is during the actual interview, asking a combination of different questions to validate the existence of these behaviors in this individual. If we're looking for leadership skills or effective communication skills, are there experiences in your life that can really validate that you exhibit these skills? Does that make sense? Just because your resume says that, or does it even say that, doesn't mean you do it. You have to give me hardcore prime examples. Does everyone understand? Too many often, interviewers see someone's a leader or see someone maybe was head of fraternity or captain of the soccer team, volleyball team or whatnot, and they assume that equals leader. It may not. And I'm going to get into that here in a bit. And then the last thing is aligning. That's during the post. It's gaining alignment on the responses you've given and the requirements that we're looking for. Are you aligned? Are you the person we're looking for? And what do we do next? Pass it on to the next person, or we make you the offer as well too. So these are 4 steps I teach my customers, once again, to do when they're interviewing. So define, mind, probe, and align. And I'm going to get into these 4 parts here in a bit. So the first thing, defining what I call something is key success criteria. Those are basically behaviors required for success in a given job. So first and foremost, you need to be prepared. They need to have a job description, but they need to have key success criteria for the job. Those 3 parts consist of behaviors required to successfully do the job, why that behavior is important for success, and how do you identify that behavior in an interview. Am I making sense? So what's the behavior? Why is it important for this job? And what things, when I'm interviewing, can an interviewee give me that validates this person exhibits this behavior? So essentially, we're setting up this criteria up front, and that's going to be the crux of building that interview process. I'm looking for 10, 8, 6 behaviors relevant to success in sales, relevant to success as an HR manager, relevant to success as an IT manager. So those behaviors are going to drive my questioning process. Does everyone understand? An example might be, we're looking for someone energetic. Why is energetic? So energetic, we need self-starters, we need change agents. This is oftentimes when people are interviewing for introductory salespeople, we need someone energetic. We need someone, a self-starter. Someone's going to get up in the morning and go to work because we can't supervise them every day. So we need someone energetic. We need self-starters. We need change agents. Why is it important to the success? Job is physically and mentally challenging. We need to deal effectively with rapid changes occurring in the industry and the business, and this person must be action-oriented. I do a lot of helping companies hire a lot of sales roles. Stanley Black & Decker is one of my biggest. This is an attribute they look for. How do you identify it in an interview? They exhibit the ability to do more than one task. They have the ability to multitask. You can observe it in an interview. Hi, I'm Steve Gavatorta. I'm an HR major. Yeah. I played football. Is that an energetic guy? No, right? I mean, and that happens. I've seen more goofy things. I remember I was doing an interview. There are the questions. Typically, I have to be honest with you, I don't want you to get paranoid if you hear this question, but the old strengths and weaknesses. What do you consider strengths and weaknesses? That's a good question, but typically, when I know someone's not the person, I'll go through those questions just to get the interview over with. I don't know if you've heard it, but sometimes it's good. I mean, not saying it doesn't have validity, but it shouldn't be every question. But I've had one person, when I did strengths and weaknesses, he goes, weakness, you're looking for something that's kind of weakness, but it's really a strength, aren't you? So I checked off non-perceptive on that, that part of, right? Because now you're thinking, dude, you didn't even play the cards right on this one. So that told me he wasn't very perceptive, so I wouldn't want him in front of a client. But you hear all kinds of funny things when you're interviewing. But so these are things when I'm interviewing that person, I want proof that this person has the ability to multitask. What in your resume, what in your background do you do that where you exhibit you can multitask? Does everyone follow what I'm saying? Or I can observe it in an interview. If you're deadpan, you ain't most likely not energetic. Another one, experience dealing with changing environments. So I'm looking for proof that you actually did have to deal with a lot of changing environments, that you did have to deal with different obstacles and overcome them. I want real proof of that happening. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? You can't just tell me you're energetic. I need to have proof that you are. I need to have proof you can multitask. I need to see it. And I want to understand how you dealt with changing environment. This is just a little microcosm of the key success criteria that I will work on. So as an example, for the sales role, our key success criteria, I often train companies on, and I was interviewed with this by Beecham Products. I still use it for sales teams. Happy CLEAT is an acronym for 10 behaviors relevant to success in a sales role. So if I'm teaching my clients to interview for a sales or account manager type person, someone has to interface with customers. I'm looking for someone that's hardworking. I'm looking for someone that's assertive. I'm looking for someone that's personable, perceptive, intelligent, has good communication skills, good leadership skills, is energetic, action-oriented, and very tenacious. I gave the example of, on the previous page, the key success criteria for energetic. So if I go back to this page, I walk through this process with each of these. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? So we do key success criteria for each of these. So now going at an interview, I know what I'm looking for. I know what attributes I'm looking for. I know why it's important. And I know how to draw it out in an interview. I'm not going in blind. Does everyone follow what I'm saying? And the interviewer job is to draw this out in you, and your job is to validate this exists in you. Does everyone understand? I'm going to tell the short story. I'm not going to make it as long as last time, but Jim knows. My senior year, my parents' house collapsed in a coal mine. We lost our house. We didn't have a homeowner's insurance. We lost our house. I had 2 more mortgage payments to pay the house. We were living in a 1-bedroom apartment. This is the end of my junior year at Allegheny College. I go home to work that summer. We're living in a 1-bedroom apartment. My dad ran a produce market, a fruit market. I'd work there every year. And I'm home a week. His lung collapses from an arthritis-related illness. So here I am, 19 years old, living in an apartment, don't know what's going to happen to their house. My dad's in a hospital. What do I do? So I told people earlier in class, I panicked at first, but after a few minutes, I kind of, my dad prepared me for this. Because each year, my dad taught me something new, taught me something, how to order, how to price product, how to interface with customers. So he taught me every year. He was preparing me for this moment, so to speak, not figuring the house was going to collapse in a coal mine, but was preparing me if I ever had to run the market, I knew what to do. And I essentially ran that market the entire summer while he healed, while our house was being rebuilt. And it was actually the most influence, a lot of this book is based off that. It was actually the most, if not one of the most, if not the most important time in my life. It changed me, helped me become a man overnight, gave me a tremendous amount of confidence. And most importantly, the end of my senior year, you know, I was an average student. I went to a tough school. I had to graduate probably of 2.6. Not condoning having bad grades and being successful because it typically doesn't mix. But I was about 2.6 average. But out of all my fraternity brothers, I did not have the most job offers. I was up there in the top 3 to 5 guys who had the most job offers. Now, I only had a 2.6. End of my senior year, what do you think intrigued interviewers about me? Let's expand on that.
So, I mean, you can have a high GPA but not do anything, but the fact that you're working, going to school, like, showed that you're able to multitask.
That story about my family's house was what most companies latched on to. How did you, and I tell that story and their jaws would drop and the questions just start going. Now I dealt with that difficult situation and ran that market for the summer. Do you think I had actual stories to validate all those competencies? Yes. I could share. I was a hard worker, right? I did not shy away from, our family business could have folded that summer. Obviously I proved I was hard worker. I proved I was assertive. I could have, we could have shut down the store again. I proved that. I proved I was personable. I had to deal with customers and people, and I exhibited it in the interview. I was perceptive. Obviously, you're not going to run a successful business if you're not a perceptive guy, right? Intelligent, communicate. I had all valid examples of all these in an interview. I was able to connect the dots between the behaviors they needed, what my life experience could provide to that. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? So as you're thinking about interviewing now, think about all the things you've done. I don't care how menial it is, whether you were part of a group or head of a small group. Most people, when I do a lot of reviewing resumes now, primarily through family, friends, or whatever. Hey, can you look at my son's resume or daughter's resume? Or most of them, people are not giving themselves the benefit of the doubt on what they've accomplished and what they've actually done in their lives. Because I'll bring them in, I'll sit with them, and I'll talk to them. They have so much more life experience and skills than they even realized that they could connect the dots into how it's relevant to being successful in a job. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? So don't underestimate anything that's happened in your life, even if it's a little goofy, not goofy, but an adverse situation at your family life that you had to deal with and overcome. That might be a relevant story to show that, hey, I have good communication skills, or I'm a hard worker, or I don't give up. So go back, look at that resume. Does your resume exhibit behaviors that may be needed for success in a job? And do I have actual stories to validate those points? Am I making sense to everybody? Okay. So define. So that's the key thing. Define those key criteria you're looking for success in a given job, because each job responsibility is different. The behaviors and competencies relevant to jobs are different. There may be some overlap, but the company needs to define it, and you as the interviewer need to do the best you can do in understanding what those behaviors needed are. How might you discover the behaviors relevant to a job in a job you're interviewing for?
We've talked about this in staffing last week. We talked to people in a similar position.
So you talk to people in those positions and try to draw out what behaviors or competencies they need. So that's a good one, right? So now I'm in the ballpark. Now I'm starting to think, okay, here's things they're looking for. What's in my background? What's in my experience that can give solid evidence that I have those attributes for success? Am I making sense? You can research. You can ask them, what criteria do you look for as success in a job? And just be prepared to, but I mean, I think even, just thinking of, just look at that sales role. What would a salesperson need to be? Or head of HR, a HR person, what skills would they need? Think common sense wise about it. And then start drawing out, what do I have that can meet that? And how can I share and tell those stories that prove that I exhibit those behaviors? So, were you going to say something, Jim? Or?
Yeah.
And don't shy back from in my books, In Defense of Adversity. You know, adversity is part of life. Most companies are going to want to know how you deal with conflict. How do you solve problems? How many people have heard of emotional intelligence before? Raise your hands. EQ. I'm certified in EQ, and I would prefer to have a high EQ person and a high IQ person, I hate to say. And EQ, the basic 4 measurements on that are your intrapersonal skills. How well do you know yourself? I love my dad, but he's the least perceptive man I've ever met. He keeps making the same mistakes, smart guy, but low EQ, if that makes sense. But he just has no clue about himself. Personal knowledge is number 1. Interpersonal skills is number 2. That's your ability to interface successfully with others. The third is problem solving, and the fourth is conflict resolution. If you're good at all 4 of those, you'll have a high EQ. So I think even interviewing, you want to exhibit those 4 elements of high EQ when you're interviewing. Your self-knowledge, have self-knowledge about yourself. You can give examples of interfacing with others, and I can solve problems, and I can deal with conflict, difficult situations, because those are all things that are going to happen in the workplace. Would you agree with that, Jim?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So your ability to exhibit behaviors around those things, I think, is going to be a huge success as well, too. So, because you can be the smartest person in the world, but if you can't solve problems, if you can't resolve conflict, you are going to be not as successful of a person. It's as simple as that. Anything in life. So what I also do is I teach companies how to do scoring standards. So what are the standards when I'm trying? What's your name? Jacob. When I'm interviewing you, I'm looking for you to exhibit these behaviors. How do I have a standard that I can rate you and then pass on to that next interviewer? So we're on the same page. We're not going in blind. Am I making sense? Typically what happens, I get notes in my past corporate role, I'll get notes scribbled on a resume. Okay, here you go. Maybe a little talk about what was done, but you go in blind and you're asking what? The same questions again. It should be a seamless process. It should not be a lot of work. I should interview, let's say you and I, what's your name? Jason. Okay, let's say Jason and I are interviewing you. I interview you first. I want to pass off notes to him so he's not reiterating all the things I've already worked on. I validated this. He's going to take the ball run to the next level. Does everyone follow what I'm saying? So that's the purpose of having a good scoring process. Develop a common scoring practice, a process for capturing notes. Why is it important? It maintains consistency throughout the interview process, keeps everyone on the same page, and ensures a living document, meaning you're not starting from scratch. And I want you to also, as you're interviewing, if you sense that someone's asking you the same questions over and over again, and you're getting the sense that that person that you interviewed before did not describe any of what you've already talked about, what's that say about the company for you? They may not have their ducks in a row. I'm not saying it's a no-go, but it's a flag I'd look for. Would you agree with that? I don't want to say anything.
Or communicate.
If you love the company, and I don't want it to be a yay or nay off that point, but it's a flag. It's a flag you may want to be prepared for. So watch that. I've had that happen to me. I've seen it happen. It's mundane for me. It's like, I told this. It's not just that they're trying to get you to say something. It's the way it's been said, like they've never heard it before. If I've heard a story and someone knows about it and they're trying to dig deeper, that's a different story. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? Because this interviewer may have said, there's something, Jacob told me something about you that I need to pry more. He didn't get enough answers for this. So he's communicating me, we need to expand on this out more. But if I'm re-asking the question, you're getting the sense that, I said this already, that's telling you something about their process. I'm not saying you want to say no to the company, but it's a flag. Does everyone follow? Yes.
I had a chance to.
I always say it should be a dialogue, not a monologue. If you find the interviewer taking a majority of the time asking questions or babbling, then that's probably not a good interview. There's something, they should be getting you to talk. I want to step back and see what you give me. If they're trying to lead you with answers too, that might mean they like you and they want you to give an answer, and that's not a good interviewer as well. I've had that happen, where I like someone, I'm like, please say you have leadership. You're trying to draw that out, and they're just not. And it's the time you have to say, you know what, I like this person, but maybe they're not. That's a tough discipline piece right there, because you like the person, but they just don't exhibit what you need. So don't draw them to that question. You're trying as well too, so good. And keeps everyone on the same page. It's a live document. Once again, I pass this document off to you. I can look at these. Let's say I knock off the first 5. Let's say we're interviewing Jason, right? Let's say we're interviewing Jason. I knocked off the first 5. I say, you know what, Jason, I see he exhibits, I'm saying this, paraphrasing really quick now, he exhibits these top 5 behaviors. I think you should focus on these. We're not wasting each other's time now. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? I've checked off with him, we're cool on that. I'm going to focus here. I'm not going to refocus on that because Steve covered it already. Or Steve may say, I have the first 4. I'm concerned about communication skills. Can you dig a little deeper in that? I'm not, then it's a good action plan for him. He's knowing what he needs to focus on instead of reviewing chicken scratch and having to go through things, which happens a lot. Am I making sense? So it should be a dialogue with him. It should be a passing off of the baton smoothly. So we're both working in concert and not wasting our time, and we're not wasting his. We're really digging and scratching. Is he the right candidate? Is he the right person? Does he exhibit these behaviors? So you're working as a team. What I typically do is a scoring system 1 to 5. 1, the person does not exhibit, poor connection between the behaviors required and experience, and excellent means, I'm seeing leadership skills in Jason. He's said it to me a number of times. I'll talk about that. And identify the standards within the company and who's involved, anyone in the interviewing process. We should all be communicating, passing this on, having a good dialogue about what we need to do to validate this gentleman's behaviors. So we're working in concert. We're not going in blind. And once again, too many companies go blind. I don't know if you've seen that, Jim. Like I said, you've been with good companies, but I'm sure that happens. Probably a lot of turn, a lot of filling of jobs. We got to hire that. We got to hire that right away. You got to hire that right away. And you do that, you turn another one, and that's cost. So, okay. Making sense so far, folks? Okay, so define, mine, probe, and line. Let's get into the mining piece. That's basically, I think, what you were saying about getting those questions relevant, getting that person to talk. So this is about, I have to understand the job description, what required behaviors, that's that key success criteria, review the resume, the interview notes, and prepare key questions. I need to be able to align, based on my questions, those behaviors relevant to the job, and does this person exhibit it, and build off the previous interview. So I really teach my clients to really drive open-ended questions versus closed. Closed ends are good for validating a point, but you want to get that person talking. Does anyone know what an open-ended question is? Tell me about your time in school. Bang, that gets you talking. Were you a good student? Yes, that's a closed-ended question, right? So open-ended questions, you want to drive, get them talking, man. Get them talking, see where it goes. So I talk about broad-based question. That's what I just said to him. Broad-based question breaks the ice, gets them talking, and it can help draw out the behaviors you're seeking. If I'm a perceptive student, I'm going to say, yeah, I played Division III football. I was captain of the football team. I was vice president of the fraternity. I'm starting to do what? I'm starting to lead in there what? Leadership skills, communication skills. I'm starting to pepper that if I'm perceptive interviewee. Does everyone follow? That's what I'm looking for in that interviewing process. I'm looking for you to start opening it up and giving me those examples without me having to pry them out of you, so to speak. So once again, as the interviewer, be prepared. As the interviewee, what you guys will be soon to be, think about those attributes you have in your lives. How do they parlay into behaviors relevant for success? I'm sure you have many more than you're giving yourself credit for. So, then probing questions. Once that broad-based question hits, then I'm going to start probing, digging in deeper. So I've said, yeah, I played Division III football as the captain. Now I'm going to want to know, the probing question is, tell me about your time as captain. Now I want to see why you were captain. Were you popular? Were you a senior and all seniors get to be captains? Is that a sign of leadership? No, it's a popularity contest. You were the senior. Has nothing to do with leadership. Does everyone follow what I'm saying? I want validity why you were captain and give examples why the team voted you captain. That is leadership. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? So many companies take it point face blank, oh, leader, captain, leader. Not necessarily. I've had a lot of captains who were, excuse my French, shitty leaders. They got popularity contests, or it was seniority. They were terrible leaders. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? So that's why you want to open them up, get them talking, see if they're perceptive enough to start dishing out the behaviors you're looking for, then hone in deeper into that. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? So let's get into mining again about broad-based probing questions. Broad-based breaks the ice, gets the candidate talking, draws out the behaviors you're seeking, just what I said, and validates the resume with fact. There's a lot of people that put stuff on a resume that don't live the real life facts. That's what I want to do, is draw out what's on that resume. Is it truthful or not? And tell me more about that. Because if it doesn't mesh, that tells me another thing about that person, right? They may not be honest, or I don't want to go that far, but you're not.
They're embellishing.
Embellishing, yeah. Not walking the walk, let's put it that way. So broad-based questions, just as I said, tell me about your time with Southwest Georgia State. Tell me about that. Get them talking, man. And that's same for you when someone asks you open-ended questions. I'm trying to go both ways. Everyone see what I'm trying to do? Help you understand as an interviewee now, but also what it means to be an interviewer. Has everyone got it? So for you now, when they open those broad-ended, open-ended questions, those broad questions, you want to start delivering all that you've accomplished here. Does everyone understand? Grades are important too, because it exhibits what? Hard work, intelligence. Not saying that's not important. That is very important. But you combine that with practical, real-world experience about holding a job or dealing with an adverse situation or communicating. You connect that with the grades, that equals a high EQ person. High IQ, high EQ person. I want that person on my team. Simple as that. So probing questions, once again, after I hit the broad-based question, I want to probe, use to hone in a specific behavior, validates that the behavior does exist, and allows you a deep dive. So you tell me about your time at Southwest Georgia State. You said you have good leaders. So the person exhibits, I say, I was a leader on a football team. So you said you have good leadership skills. Give me examples. So from the interviewer perspective, don't assume because they say they're a leader they are. Get examples. And for you, if they're looking for leadership skills, don't say you are. You do what? Give examples. Because saying you are doesn't mean so. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? And once again, this is a point of differentiation because so many people don't connect those dots. I see bad resumes and I draw out all the good that these people actually done. We redo those resumes. If they're not doing the resume right, imagine how they are in an interview and they're not drawing out these different dynamics. Does everyone follow? So that's a point of differentiation for you as an interviewer or interviewee. So the point of a good interview is get you talking. Have a dialogue, not a monologue. So keep that in mind. So the next piece is probing. Hone in on so my job as an interviewer and you as an interviewee is to connect the dots between behaviors and my life experiences. So validate that there is alignment with the behavior, that this person exhibits these behaviors we're looking for. Use different combination techniques to get those. Give actual examples that prove the behavior, and don't take comments at face value. You say you're a leader, it's on a resume. Don't assume. You know what they say about assume, don't you? How many people know what that means? Okay. How many people don't want to know what it means? Okay, you know how do you spell assume?
A-S-S-U-M-E.
So if you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. So, little elderly wisdom, I'm sorry. I hope you don't mind swearing a little bit. So what I typically do, I tell interviewers, look for the 2 strikes rule or 3 hits, 2 hits rule, 3 strikes rule. I want existence of that relevant behavior at least 2 times to say this person gets a 5, he or she exhibits that behavior. So I want to hear why you're a leader, and I want to hear 2, if you can give me 2 examples, I'm like, this person gets a 4 or 5, they've got it, I'm going to move on to some other behavior. Does everyone follow what I'm saying? So when you're interviewing, give 2 examples. of where you're a good leader, where you're a good communicator, where you've been a good problem solver. Be prepared. Some may not want that second one. One powerful one may be enough. I'm not saying it's not, but always have hip pocket. Does everyone follow? And then the 3 strikes rule. I will make, and I tell my clients, make no more than 3 attempts to validate this exists. This behavior exists. Because if they can't give you in 3, guess what? It doesn't exist. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? So if I'm looking for leadership and I've gone 3 avenues to get why you are a leader and you ain't giving it to me, then I'm like, that person does not have leadership skills. Despite what it says on a resume, despite the fact they are captain of the football team. Does everyone understand? So 2 hits, 3 strikes. Does everyone know what I mean by that? Okay. So let's look at an actual example, hypothetical example, I should say. We're looking for leadership. So the interviewer, I ask the base question. Tell me about your previous manager and how they would describe you. Open-ended question, right? So get them talking. This person's response is, I think he'd say I'm a great leader and an excellent communicator. So what 2 behaviors were discussed in that response? Leadership and communication, right? So now I'm homing in. Now I'm probing. This is kind of a simplified example, but now I'm homing in. Now I want to say, okay, I want to see, is this person have leadership skills and communication skills? So I'm going to hone in on one of them. So we said behavior 1, behavior 2. Let's focus on leadership skills. So I'll focus on that one first. Okay. So tell me, give me an example why he'd say you were a good leader. So I asked the broad question, now I'm going to hone in. 2 responses. You tell me which one you would rather hear. This is response 1. I led a seasoned team that was number 1 in sales within the entire organization. Is that good? I led a seasoned team that was number 1 in sales within the entire organization. Is that good? And number 1 sales led the team, right? Here's the another response, same person, just say it was this. I inherited a dysfunctional team that I retrained and led from number 22 in sales volume to number 1 within a year. One answer is better. Why? Bingo. Seasoned teams means what? You inherited an already good, probably successful seasoned guys. Kudos to you. You didn't break what was already. You'd have to break something that was working already. Good for you. I like that. But this one tells me more what? This not only tells me leadership, it tells me what else? Probably problem solving, conflict resolution, has to be good communication skills. So this one in and of itself isn't bad. I'm not saying it's bad. But this one not only hits the point harder, it opens up more questions for me. Right now I'm saying, well, check off leadership. Now I'm going to hone in on, tell me about that team. What happened? Bang, now I have the possibility to hear what? Problem solving, conflict resolution, communication skills. Now the whole world opens up. Now I can start chipping away. Now I can start chipping away at that. Retrained. What did you do? Tell me how you retrained them. Was that a training program already implemented, or did you create something? That's a world of difference right there too, right? Recreating something even adds more meat. So does everyone understand what I'm saying? This is an example for not only asking and driving and validating the behaviors, but you as an interviewee, what you need to do when you're interviewing. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? Give those real world examples. Be ready to connect those dots. Like I said, off of this answer alone come 3 or 4 questions for the interviewer, for you, 3 or 4 opportunities to validate, I can do this job. I'm the right person for you. Does everyone understand? So little nuances, just a little subtle thing like that makes a world of difference, right? I mean, it's amazing, and it just opens up a world of things. So question from a interviewer perspective, being good at asking questions, being good at listening skills is key. Be in the moment. But for you as interviewers, you be good at listening, asking questions, and be ready to dance. Say, bang, I have that answer. I love interviewing. How many people get nervous interviewing? Raise your hands. I loved it. Especially when I have so many practical stories to fall back on. And I love drawing from them. Keep notes. Have those stories ready. And like I said, don't sell yourself short on anything you've done. Most people sell themselves short. When I sit with students or one-on-one with someone, they're like, oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah, you led a prayer group. That's the leadership or something. You didn't even think about that, or whatever that might be. Those things, whatever that might be, it's out there. So think through that. So the last thing, define, mind, probe, and align. Last thing we do is say, hey, we interviewed Jacob, and let's see where we need to be. Let's align criteria. All the interviewers, Jacob and I are going to get there. We interviewed everybody. Let's compare our notes. Is Jason the right fit? So let's look at the 2 hits rule. Did they connect the dots on a 2 hits rule? Where did we score this person across all these competencies? 1 to 5. For each behavior and as a total. Review the resume, previous interview notes, compare versus other applicants, and then decide next steps. Go, or next interview. Ensure your interview insights are shared with the next interviewer. Don't let it be blind. Pass on, the metaphor I use is a relay race. Pass on that baton cleanly, because that's going to help you have a more effective interview. Do the reference check, look at the hiring phase and use alternative checkpoints. I certified in DISC, Myers-Briggs, bar and EQ. I often say on final interviewers, if you're, give them an assessment. See who matches up closest with the behaviors you're looking for. And not saying it has to be an exact match, but it'll give you an idea of what you're looking for from a behavioral perspective. DISC terms, I'm looking for a high D, and one's a high D, one's a high I. Not saying I'm already going to go with the high D, but it's going to give me an idea of what I might need to work on if they're not matched, whatever. So use assessments. And that's basically it. Just to top line it, 4 key points to remember. Understand, again, I'm hoping I'm helping you understand from both ends of the perspective. When you're in the role of interviewing, when you're in your corporate role, but also in your role now, interviewing, being the interviewee, point 2. So I'm hoping, am I connect the dots on both ends? Okay. So understand what you bring to the picture. Productive employees, that's going to contribute to the top line, not hindering the bottom line. Be prepared, think from their perspective, do your homework, research the companies, get a job description or behaviors required for success, align your skills, your histories, your experiences with the relevance to the job, have facts and validation, provide proof that your skills align to those respective behaviors. And on the last side, folks, if you enjoy what you do, you never work a day in your life. I promise you, because I've worked some jobs I didn't like life very much. But majority of my career, whether it was in corporate or my own business, I've enjoyed. I've not worked a day in my life, and I'd recommend the same to that as you. As you're interviewing, you want to be a good interviewee, but you also want to interview them. Are they the company for me? Do they train? Do they develop? Are they buttoned up? Because once again, that's it's important for you as well to be happy in your lives. So that's it. I hope that helped. I want to do a little bit of a twist, take another angle at it rather than, like I said, you already have a department to help you with the resumes, the interviews. I just wanted to see what I teach clients so you're more prepared as well too. So.
We got about 10 minutes, so we have a little bit of time for questions or commentary. If anybody's got anything they want to add?
Jacob and Jason.
It's actually Nick. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I saw you laughing. I'm like, I knew I screwed up the name somewhere. Sorry. I don't know what's going on in my mind. Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. It was great. What are some of the biggest companies you've helped? You said you helped create plans, like performance plans. What are some of the biggest companies?
Yeah, it's Stanley Black & Decker. Dippin' Dots is one. Dippin' Dots, Mac Tools, pharmaceutical company called Santoris. Then I'll work with a lot of smaller companies in that arena too. A lot of the bigger companies kind of have their stuff in place already, but I'm not saying it's good. Not saying it's good. Most companies don't necessarily, Stanley had a lot done. I've added a little bit to the foundation that they had already created. So, does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
How much of hiring success is a factor of the hiring process and interviewing as opposed to training and development, like you were talking about?
Well, you have to get the right bodies on the boat first. Because once the right bodies are on, the training follows. So does that make sense? So the most important is getting the right players on the team for, sports terminology. That's the first part, because then you're able to train on those fundamentals relevant to success in a job. So if I'm looking for certain skills, communication skills, and you don't exhibit it, I'm gonna have to really reinvent the wheel to help or help get you further along in it because you don't exhibit already. So getting the right players on a team first is most important. But that investment in people is huge. That's one reason I love Stanley Black & Decker. They probably, their new hires, for sales roles, I'm not sure some of the internal roles, but for sales roles, they will bring in their new hires 3 times within the first 14, 16 months for a week of training, not a day, a week of training. I do 1 day of one of those sessions, and it's negotiation skills. So look for companies that will invest, or at least onboarding, I think, is an important thing too, because so many companies throw you to the wolves. And that starts you off with a bad taste in your mouth. You're maybe not as successful as you can. I'll be honest, my first job out of college was Beecham Products, and I said that changed my life. Didn't start off as fast because I was given a manager, and he wasn't very good, and I was struggling. And I kind of had a country territory, and they didn't like come and work with me because it wasn't sexy, if that makes sense. I was kind of out in the boonies, so I didn't get a lot of attention, and I was struggling. In fact, probably 8 months on board, one of the key account managers came and worked with me in the field one day, and he was an up-and-comer. This guy was a stud. So worked with me for that. I thought it went fine, go home. Week later, I get something in the mail. It's essentially a work with recap that he did and had to send it to his boss, my boss ultimately, but he accidentally sent it to me. It was horrible. I thought I was going to die. I'm like, oh my, I thought I was going to get fired, blah, 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 blah. So it was to the point where I was struggling. I was really upset. So I went to that guy who's my mentor this day. He was head of training at the time, and this was gutsy because he could have fired me, but I said, I'm struggling. I want to see if you can help me find another job. If you can help get me to a recruiter, blah, 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 blah. So he said, I'll do what I can. No problem, no problem. He goes to my manager, reams him a new one, and says, we went through the hiring process. This guy has the skills to succeed. You guys aren't training him. He put that stud over top of me, and in a matter of 3 months, I was up and running. So that's the importance of onboarding. Does everyone follow? That's another time in my life, one of those turning points. If I would have left at that time, I would have left with no confidence, thought myself a failure. Who knows what other job I would have got into and struggled. It turned my life around just because the guy re-corrected on what was a bad. They had a good onboarding process. The guy that was training me didn't do a good job of it. Does everyone follow what I'm saying? So it could be make or break for a person, for a company as well too, because you could have turned me. That would have been costly to them. And my mentor he told him, he goes, we went through Happy Cleat. They did that. We went through Happy Cleat. This guy exhibits everything we know can be successful. Why is he struggling? He went after them, not me. Does everyone follow? And they re-changed it, and it turned my career around. So onboarding's big. Yes?
Why did you decide to become a writer?
I like pain. No, I'm teasing. Part of a calling card. This is the second time I published a book. I've been published in several publications. The first one was more of a calling card. It was a specialty that I did on the DISC survey, and I wanted to be published on that and be an expert on that. But this one is a labor of love. This is a heartfelt book. I think it's very much needed now. I'm passionate about it, and I was telling Jim earlier in the class earlier, I first thought about this whole concept 5 years ago, and it wasn't until probably the last year, 6 months before I wrote it, it's when I finally said, this is hot, I've got to do it. And it's just passionate about it. So it's in my wheelhouse tied to my business, but it's also a broader topic that I'm quite passionate about, I think is needed now. I told the group before, the book's called In Defense of Adversity, Turning Your Toughest Challenges into Your Greatest Success. If you Google the phrase, how to deal with adversity, you'll get 21 million responses. You think this is a hot topic now? So I'm passionate about it, and I want to provide a solution for people out there. Does that answer your question? Yeah, because I do not like writing. It's not easy for me. So, okay, anything else? Listen, Jim's going to give you the deck, right, Jim? And on the back of it's my information. Feel free to shoot me an email if you have any. You may think of some questions after you're gone today. you know, listen, I love working with people, helping people. That's why I do what I do. And if you have any other questions or comments, you know, shoot me a direct email if that's okay with Jim, and be happy to help and whatnot as well too. And you know, I'm going to talk to him about some of my clients and who may be looking for people. You know, Stanley hires a lot of people out of school. They have a big HR department. That could be a potential.